think we've seen a lot of these to-be athletes, these persons with disabilities, be told no, or that they can't, and then they just give up or they stop, and they've never actually tried, and they're only told no because, of some statistic that says they're probably not going to, but they've never tried for themselves, and I've always thought that was kind of weird, and what we're finding is that when we get these people to try, those statistics are wrong, and that they're based off people who don't want to do any better, and so they have this whole vast life of functionality that they haven't even began to tap because someone somewhere along the road said, hey, don't do that, or hey, you can't do that, or you should be careful because you're already broken. And I think my big goal is to allow them to understand that, like, yeah, you may have some broken parts and pieces, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't try to better those things. You shouldn't try to and push the limits of your athleticism just because someone told you no. I mean, imagine an able-bodied person. Imagine the CrossFit Games if half of these athletes had been told no and they just stopped and hadn't pushed the limit.
This is episode number 124 with Kevin Ogar. Welcome to Pursuing Health. I'm Julie Foucher, family medicine resident and former CrossFit Games athlete. Here, I bring to you information and inspiration from experts and everyday individuals for how to use lifestyle to maximize health. Thank you so much for joining me. Now let's get started with this week's episode. Hey there, and welcome back to Pursuing Health. This is another episode that I recorded this past summer at the 2019 CrossFit Games, and this is a conversation that I had been eager to have for several years now. I first met Kevin Ogar just a few months after his life-changing accident back in 2014 when we competed together at the Battle of Courage, which was a fundraising competition put on by CrossFit TNT to raise some money for his rehabilitation. And I was struck then when I first met Kevin by his positive attitude and by the power of his very close-knit community and circle surrounding him. But since that time, I've continued to be very impressed from afar as he's used this devastating event in his own life to positively impact thousands of other people. So, as you'll hear shortly, Kevin's life changed dramatically in a freak accident during a fitness competition in 2014, leaving him paralyzed from the waist down. And in the aftermath of this accident, Kevin was surrounded by the love and support from the CrossFit community, and it was his passion for CrossFit that helped him to navigate through some of those dark times as he focused on getting back in the gym and back to the community that he loves. In the years since his accident, Kevin has not only become a very prolific adaptive athlete, but he's also dedicated himself to helping others using CrossFit for fitness and recovery. He travels around the world teaching CrossFit Level 1 seminars and Adaptive Training Academy courses. He also runs his own CrossFit affiliate, CrossFit Watchtower. He volunteers with Craig Hospital to run a therapeutic recreation program, which is where he received much of his own rehab. He's also on the board of directors for the Reveille Project, which is a nonprofit that provides tools to aid veterans as they adapt back to civilian life. So in this conversation, Kevin and I talk about his accident and his recovery process. We also talk about how he adjusts his mindset when he's having a down day and how his personal challenges have enhanced his passion for helping others. I also wanted to give a very special shout out here to Kevin and his fiancée Shannon on their recent engagement. I know that myself and everyone listening is wishing them a big congrats and a future of health and happiness. Before we get started, this is a reminder that although I am now officially a doctor, this podcast is meant to share the experiences of individuals and does not provide medical advice. So with that, let's get started with episode number 124 of Pursuing Health featuring Kevin Ogar. Welcome to Pursuing Health. I'm super excited to be here with Kevin Ogar.
Thanks, Julie. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you for joining me. It's about time.
Yeah.
So lots of things that I want to talk about. You obviously have an incredible story and you're doing some really amazing things now.
Oh, thanks.
But I thought maybe we could start at the beginning about how did you get into fitness in the first place?
I got into fitness. I mean, I've been playing sports since I was 5.
Okay.
Year-round sports at 5 years old, basically, until high school.
What kind of sports?
Oh, you name it, I played it. Soccer, baseball, basketball was my big one. Got into high school and did track and football and
a little bit of everything.
Rugby in college. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I think rugby is a great sport.
Oh, it's
going into CrossFit, especially just because of the physicality of it. And I know I think I was talking to a guy who played rugby. He's here from Wales, and he just loved the sleds, that bob that they were doing, the team bob. He's like, oh, that's so great.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, actually, it was the reverse for me. I actually got more into CrossFit because I started playing rugby.
Oh, awesome.
Because I couldn't run 400 meters because I was a fat college kid.
So tell us about that. How did you first hear of CrossFit? What got you into it?
I had been powerlifting since I was about 12 or 13.
Oh, wow.
And right around when I was 21, I started training people as a personal trainer. And my boss had started CrossFit when he was in the Marines.
Oh, okay.
And he'd always kind of jab me to give it a shot because I was a fat waddler. Like I was just really big.
You like to lift.
I loved to lift. I wasn't much on the cardio.
Okay.
And so I finally did a workout with him and his girlfriend and one of the other trainers and got absolutely smoked. They did in like 3 minutes. I think it took me like 30 something minutes.
Wow.
So
you got the bug.
And I was like, I don't like getting beat. And so I jumped in.
Okay.
And so I heard about through him and then kind of through not liking losing, got caught up in the CrossFit.
That's cool. Because I feel like there's probably a lot of powerlifters that would just give it the one time, say, nope, this isn't for me. But you said, okay, I don't like losing. I'm going to see what this is all about.
Yeah, I think it was that in the comment. Like I was ran track. I ran 400s. I was decently okay at that. And then I went to go run a 400 at rugby practice one day and couldn't run around the track once without stopping. So
you wanted that
conditioning
back.
Figured it was time.
Okay. And what year was this when you first started?
This was 2007.
2007. So you were early.
Yeah.
I mean, that was very early. And were you in Colorado at the time?
No. I grew up in Missouri.
Okay.
I was attending the University of Missouri Columbia.
Okay.
Mizzou. Yeah, and that's where I played rugby at, and that's where I found CrossFit. There was only like 6 CrossFitters in the whole state at that point in time.
Wow. I
think you had to drive an hour and a half or almost 2 hours to find a CrossFit gym.
Okay. So you were in the phase of, did you do it at like a Globo gym or home gym? And then
got thrown out of a few Globo gyms.
Okay.
Got fired from a couple training jobs because of it.
It's like the classic 2007 starting CrossFit story.
We did it in a park, in a garage. I drove a Ford Taurus, and I kept barbells and plates and rings in my trunk. And
that's awesome.
We drove around and pop them out at parks and do workouts and throw them back in.
That's so awesome. So you're playing rugby, you're doing CrossFit. What did you do after college was done?
After college, I'd moved out to Colorado at that point. I went to college for a lot of years.
Okay. Like how many?
Started in 2004, stopped going in 2009, 2010.
Okay. That's not that many.
I still don't have a degree. That's that's a lot.
Okay. What kinds of things did you dabble in while you were there?
Mostly behavioral psychology, some biochemistry. Towards the end, I got really sick of them telling me I needed to take history classes to learn anything about psychology and biochemistry. So I just started taking classes that I liked. Cool. But apparently that does not get you degrees.
Just gets you a lot of education, but no degree. Okay.
Yep. So that's where I was.
Those sound like great classes for training people, though, psychology and biochemistry.
Yeah, it was. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed learning. I wasn't a huge fan of school.
Fair enough.
Only because they would force me to do things I thought was stupid. I like to debate, and I got into a lot of debates with my professors.
Okay.
But was studying that, and actually I got kicked out of school, and that's where I found training in CrossFit.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Cool. So then at what point did you finally start training at an affiliate? I
didn't start training at an affiliate until I moved to Colorado in 2009.
Okay.
I got a job, my first job, at an actual CrossFit affiliate in a gym in Centennial, Colorado.
Okay.
And that was the first time I'd ever actually worked out in a CrossFit affiliate.
So you were doing it for quite a while, for a couple of years before you had been in an affiliate. What sort of new aspect did that bring to your training?
For that gym, not a lot. It wasn't the best gym. So she was. The owner was a nice enough lady. She was just very kettlebell heavy, and coming from a barbell background, I think the gym had one barbell.
Oh wow! Okay.
And then like an entire wall of kettlebells. So it was a little different. I had to try to put my own personal preferences for training aside and kind of coach the way she wanted me to coach for a little while, and then. We ended up splitting. I ended up quitting a year later after my first stint at regionals.
Okay. And then what drew you into wanting to compete in CrossFit? I mean, it sounds like you were naturally competitive and you wanted to, you didn't want to lose. So it seems like a natural fit, but when did you make that choice?
That was right before I moved to Colorado, actually.
Okay.
I had a friend that I trained with, and I remember the .com workout was like running and power cleans and pull-ups.
Okay.
And I remember it was like an AMRAP, because I remember it was 2 or 3 reps away from beating Chris Spieler.
Oh.
Of course, he had no clue I was. I was just always watching him on the main site. And I turned to my friend. I was like, dude, I almost caught Chris Spieler. And he's like, Kevin, you will never be good enough to compete with Chris Spieler. And I was like, all right, well, I guess I got a new goal. So I think I actually snapped a photo and sent it to him the first year I actually got to compete with Chris at regionals.
Oh, that's sweet. Very cool. So what was the first year you were at regionals?
2010.
10. Okay. And it sounds like you kind of went a long way from when you started CrossFit. You weren't really doing too hot and running the 400s to then competing at regionals. What were some of the biggest things that you think allowed you to succeed in that competition environment?
I think it's a lot with my competitive nature. I think most of it is the fact that I have really short limbs.
That helps, as we saw with Carrie Pierce and Mary the other day.
So I'm a little taller than your average CrossFitter. So I'm 6'3".
Okay.
So I think the short limbs help.
That is very tall for a CrossFitter, yeah.
I'm also very hard-headed and stubborn. So I will literally almost die before I just let someone beat me.
That helps too.
So that was probably the only thing that saved me. I was known for going out really hot and sprinting, and then just dying and trying to hang on for as long as I could. Yeah. That was kind of my MO.
So you didn't get the whole pacing thing.
No, I was not a pacer. I've been a sprinter my whole life, and I don't think I've ever learned how to pace.
Yeah. Keeps things fun.
Keeps things painful.
That's one way to think about it.
Yeah.
All right. So how many years did you go to regionals?
I went to regionals 2010 to 2013.
Okay. And then 2014 was obviously a big year. That was the year of your injury. So I want to talk a little bit about that. I know everyone is probably aware who's listening, but to get it from your perspective, I remember it really well because I was at that competition, and it was my first competition back after I had taken a year off from competing. So it definitely sticks out in my memory. But what were you feeling like kind of going into that competition? It was a OC throwdown. It wasn't a CrossFit quote unquote competition at the time, but why'd you choose to do that one? How were you feeling when you went into it?
I'd done that one the year before, and we usually did it because there was just a large base of really good athletes that usually competed at regionals or open or games, and so it was kind of a nice little testing ground for us to make sure our training was going the right way before going into the open, so we could switch anything up we needed to before regionals.
Good time of year.
And so we just kind of took it at that, and honestly, I'd been doing better than I ever had. I had switched into a more cardio-specific program, so I was doing a lot better competitively because I had been doing a lot of barbell stuff just because I liked it.
Yeah.
So I was feeling really good. That event for me probably would have been my best event of the weekend at the time.
Barbell, yeah.
I think at the time I was snatching somewhere around 300 pounds.
Okay, wow. And that was in 2014. Not many people were snatching 300 pounds.
Yeah, the barbell was just kind of my jam. Yeah. So I think it was the snatch, back squat, and jerk, I think.
Yeah.
So those three movements weren't bad for me.
Okay.
So I was actually really excited about that movement because we had just done a long endurance piece.
You're like, yes, the barbell.
Finally something short and heavy.
Yeah.
So really excited about it. I had actually warmed up and hit what I thought was going to be my opener beforehand in the warm-up area, which was going to be 245. And then walking out, my coach told me that no one had snatched more than, I think, 225.
Okay.
So I even dropped it down 10 pounds. And I was like, I'm just going to go.
Yeah, play it safe.
Go lighter, play it safe, and then see what happens. Yeah. And only got one attempt.
Man. So what is your recollection of what happened in that moment?
We actually have a frame by frame, so we can tell you exactly.
You've watched it.
I have not watched the video. I've seen the frame by frame.
Okay.
The video I think would be a little harder for me.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
We actually just finished up the first part of a court case with.
Oh wow.
With the OC throwdown finally after 5 years, and so we had to watch and view and go over all this stuff Monday.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I went to go snatch 235, caught it a little far back, felt a little off balance, and I remember thinking bail before you snap your elbow.
Okay.
Kind of one of those catches. And so I just went to go bail backwards and jump forwards. But I don't know if you remember this, but there was a slant to the platform. So all the bars kept rolling back into athletes. And so I couldn't get out of the way.
Okay.
And so the barbell came down and hit my left shoulder. And bounced off of me, and had the plates not been stacked behind us the way they were, it would just roll backwards.
Okay.
But it hit the plates behind me, and you can actually watch it in the video. It shoots the plates back, and the barbell hits my hips and lifts my hips off the ground and severs my spine.
Wow. That's crazy. What did you feel when that happened? Was it like instant pain?
Oh, yeah. It's like getting hit by a car in your back, and then every single nerve on your body was set on fire. So like immediate shock, immediate nerve pain, head to toe, everywhere.
Oh my gosh.
And it was constant. It was bad. It was really bad.
Wow. And then I know you were rushed off to the hospital. Do you remember much of
all of
that
it?
time?
I was never unconscious. I was conscious the entire time. I remember having conversations on the floor with my training partner's wife, who was a medic, my best friend who was out there watching, talking to them, talking to other people. I remember pretty much every corner and
really
turn,
vivid,
and very vivid. I didn't actually get knocked out or drugged until I got to the hospital, and they put me in MRI. Wow. And they only did that because I insisted, because I am wildly claustrophobic.
Yeah. Okay. MRI is no joke. I've had one MRI in my neck, and I had to come out. I was like, I can't do this. They ended up putting like a mirror so I could actually see out the end, and then it was acceptable, but I am not a fan of small spaces.
They don't make like an extra large MRI, so my shoulders touch the sides.
Oh my gosh.
So I'm literally like in MRIs like this.
Yeah. No, that's terrifying.
I couldn't do it, so they eventually had to knock me unconscious, and they couldn't give me anything for pain because they didn't know what was going on.
They wanted to be able to test what.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So that nerve pain insisted until they knocked me out for the MRI.
Wow. So they did the MRI.
Mm-hmm.
At what point did you hear any news about what injuries you'd actually?
I think it was, I was drugged at this point, but I think it was a few hours later, the doctor came in, he's like, Mr. Ogar, I got some bad news. And I was like, I'm paralyzed. I get it. It's pretty obvious. My legs aren't moving. And then he told me that we had to have surgery, and we were going to have that surgery about 9 hours. And in that time, I had 9 hours to tell people goodbye, because there was about 15% chance of surviving.
Oh my gosh. 15% chance of surviving the surgery. And what was the surgery? It
was a spinal thoracotomy.
Okay.
So they had to come in. So it's because of the way the barbell hit me and the way it separated or dislocated my vertebrae and severed the spine completely. They couldn't go in through the back and realign it.
Okay.
Because they probably would have caused more damage. They didn't really know where my spine was at. So they had to come in from the side. So they had to dislocate my ribs, deflate my lungs, pull out some of my organs, and then go in through the top, and then inch by inch realign my spine.
Wow. Do you know how far it was severed? Or
I have a picture of it, actually.
You do? That's crazy.
Yeah, I have not of the inside of me, but I have the X-ray.
Yeah, the X-ray.
And it looks like it's pretty much on two different sides of my body. So
insane.
My T11 is barely touching my T12.
Wow. Mm-hmm. And aside from that, were there any other internal organ injuries or anything?
Everything else is fine. I didn't even fracture my vertebrae. I had one small fracture from where the vertebrae connect, but that was it. The rest of my vertebrae are 100% intact.
Wow.
So the only thing it did, it hit me so perfectly on my disc that it just tore through the disc and tore the spine.
That's crazy.
A fourth of an inch in any other direction. My doctor said I either would have been instantly dead or would have stood up and walked away from it.
Oh my gosh. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Who was with you? As you were not at home.
No.
I mean, I know you had training partners and some people there, but who was with you when you were there in the hospital?
Oh, everyone was there. Family ended up flying out. A guy named Isaac Toomer, I've known for years, drove from Vegas just to see me. He went to 3 different hospitals because no one would tell him where I was at.
Oh my gosh.
Just everyone ended up flying out, or I had 2 or 3 friends who just randomly were out there that same weekend for business who came down to see me. So I was pretty well kept company.
Wow. So, I mean, first of all, I can't imagine going into a surgery with someone telling you that you have a 15% chance of surviving the surgery. But what, when you finally woke up, what were your first thoughts?
First thoughts I remember?
I mean, I'm sure there was a lot of anesthesia and things happening in between, but.
I remember thinking that since I was alive, that God had a purpose for me. Like this was supposed to be the way it is. And if this was the purpose, then I was going to live with it. And, having woken up to the whole CrossFit community behind you and raising all that money, it's kind of like, all right, this is definitely the purpose.
That's huge. Yeah. Did you have a very strong faith prior to going into this?
Grew up in a great family and still great faith in me growing up. And it's just always been one of those things. Like I was really stupid and dumb when I was a kid. And I feel like for me, my faith side of that is what kind of pulled me through and allowed me to see the positive side instead of wallowing. It also allows me to kind of look at it like, even though I've lost my leg, I've gained so much more in the aspect of like what I think my purpose on this earth is and what God put me here for. So I think that's a huge part of why I'm still around.
That's amazing perspective. I'm sure it's taken time to gain that perspective after, as we're talking about, first waking up from surgery. I'm sure there was a million different stages of kind of your mental, emotional state, obviously, as well as your physical state as you then started your recovery. What were some of the things that helped you most along the way?
My friends, the CrossFit community, my sense of humor.
Yes, I know. I know you have a good sense of humor.
I make a lot of really bad jokes, lots of puns, lots of inappropriate jokes, as you found out like 5 years ago.
Yes, when we first met. And I was like, oh my gosh, did you just say that?
I believe the name of the team that you got put on was Kevin's Legs.
Yes, it was.
It was all my friends. They had a team named Kevin's Legs because they do all the work for me.
It was a good team.
They're fun. So I think that was a lot of it. Like I had a lot of good friends who came around and knew. I was really fortunate enough that the hospital I did my rehab in was 5 minutes from my home.
Okay.
And so all my friends were there constantly. Awesome. So that was probably a huge part of it.
That's huge. So at what point then, you're in California in this hospital, at what point then did you end up going back to Colorado it was a Craig?
Yep. Craig Hospital. 11 days. I was in hospital in California for 11 days.
Okay. And going back to when you said you first woke up and you felt this kind of presence of the CrossFit community, I know there was a huge fundraising efforts happening right away. There was obviously a lot of, it happened very publicly in this competition. And so how much money had they raised and in what ways were you feeling the support from the CrossFit community?
I think at that point it was just under $300,000.
Wow.
And we were receiving messages from all over the world, from like Germany, Japan, Australia, like South America, like all over the world, just streaming in like thousands and thousands a day. It was overwhelming to say the least. It was incredible. Wow. It really instilled a need to give back. Like you see all these people giving to you, even though you've never met them before. And like immediately for me, at least, it was like, well, I owe these people something.
Yeah.
So.
Wow. Okay. So you're back, Craig Rehab Hospital. Tell us about what happened while you were there.
Craig is a great facility. They're truly amazing at what they do. So they did a really good job. I was only there for 6 weeks. But you go in there, like when I went in there, I couldn't sit up. I couldn't tie my own shoes. Like you're literally a newborn.
Yeah.
Like
starting from square one.
Starting completely from scratch.
Wow.
Couldn't even shower myself. Couldn't go to the bathroom. It was literally starting from scratch. And in 6 weeks, they got me to a place where I could do all those things by myself and then some. Like taught you how to deal with a wheelchair, how to go in and out of doors in a wheelchair. They'd even at that point started teaching me how to get up off the floor if I fall out of my chair. So they do a really great job of teaching you how to handle the wheelchair life outside of them.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's like you said, you're a newborn. Like it's a completely new way that you have to navigate life.
Yeah. And I think what really makes them, they have nurses there. And I think it would be really hard for me, at least, to do the job those nurses and doctors do, because they're literally experiencing some of these people at the worst times in their life. And some of them aren't very nice about it. I
can imagine. It's just,
and
everyone has a different way of dealing with that. Yeah.
And it's rough, but I will tell you this, everyone I dealt with there was the most caring and like understanding person. Like they would get yelled and screamed at and they'd be like, all right, hon, love you. See you in a little bit. And it was really amazing.
Wow. That is amazing. And I know you still stay connected and go back and mentor some people going through there.
Yep.
What does that look like? Or what are some of the things that you hope to help people who are going through or just starting this process?
Well, we do it a couple ways. So we offer, Craig brings new patients over, like once a month, once every other month, whenever they have enough people that want to come do it. And they come, my gym's 5 minutes from there. And so they bring a whole busload over and we put them through a mini workout. And I usually have a few of my other wheelchair athletes there. And we sit down for a couple hours afterwards and just chat and talk and answer questions. And I mean, that's similar to what I do if I go back for myself and talk to them. It doesn't really Craig does a really great job of teaching you how to deal with things. But there's always still that same fear of like, what's life going to look like after this? Is this livable? Is this something I even want to do?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter how many times a doctor and nurse can tell you like, hey, you're going to be fine. This is good.
Yeah.
Like you're okay. When you see them standing on two legs, you're like, yeah, well, piss off, bud. Like you don't really know what you're talking about. And so I know for me, when I was at Craig, having people come in who are also in wheelchairs and being like, dude, you're fine. Like you're young, you're strong. You're going to be okay. Meant 1,000 times more than anything a doctor and nurse ever said.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to return that favor and go back and do the same thing for someone else. And sometimes it I don't think doctors and nurses can legally say some of the stuff I say to patients, because sometimes people just need a little bit of tough love and told to suck it up. So,
did you feel like that was helpful for you when you were going, like just starting your recovery process? Tough love in what way?
I think the tough love I received was to be told not to be an idiot.
Okay.
I think I wanted to do too much too soon.
Okay.
I was sneaking out of the hospital, go back to my CrossFit gym.
Oh man. So talk about that. Like, you obviously had this injury. Some people may say, I never want to touch another barbell again, but you were sneaking out to go work out.
It wasn't the barbell's fault. The barbell didn't stack the plates behind me. Like even the person that did stack those plates didn't mean to injure me. It was a freak 1 in a million accident. Like how many people can you even think of that have been paralyzed by a barbell?
Yeah. I don't know if there's any.
I know of one other. I know of one other. And that's, out of millions of people who have done the sport. And so it was never made sense to me to blame the barbell or blame the movement or especially blame CrossFit for any of that. It wasn't any of their faults. They didn't do anything. And I knew from training people for so long and being around barbells for so long that the only way I was going to get back to being a happy and healthy individual was going back to what I was doing that made me happy and healthy. And so I would sneak out and I would go into the gym and I would do some bicep curls or play around with some rings or do whatever and then go back to the hospital.
That's super cool. So talking a little bit about your gym, because you opened your gym 2015. Is that something that you had always thought about, owning a gym, or at what point did you decide that was something you wanted to do?
I never wanted to own a gym. No.
You just wanted to work out.
I wanted to coach. That's all I wanted to do. I didn't want to own a gym. I was coaching at another gym previously for, I think, like 4 to 6 years, somewhere in there. Okay. Basically from the time I moved out to Colorado on. That gym happened to shut down. And I'd spent all that time really trying to build this community of people, and I really didn't want to lose that. And I was fortunate enough that CrossFit provided me the opportunity to open my gym. And so I just went for it. And when I opened it, I made the decision that we would make the gym someplace for people who actually needed it. These games athletes are awesome and they're super fit and it's really cool to watch, but it just doesn't do it for me. Like it doesn't make me excited. They're not the ones who need it. They already have it. So I wanted to make the gym for adaptive, like people like myself or people who are struggling with, mood disorders or physical disabilities or addiction or recovery from anything. And so we kind of made the gym a place for that.
That's awesome. Using fitness as a tool to help people through some of those different challenges. I
think fitness is a tool. I think the community that we build is a bigger tool. The fitness is cool, but they can do it in the garage. You're not going to experience a community like that outside of a CrossFit gym.
That's
and I think that's what pulled me through. And I think that's what pulls a lot of people through, to have people who are counting on them, hold them accountable, but also are giving them a loving environment. So that's what we try to create.
What are some things that you intentionally do at your gym to build that community or to set the culture?
I don't know if I did anything. I'm going to put that all on my coaches.
Okay.
I mean, I'm pretty sarcastic and I'm pretty laid back. So we don't really train competitive athletes. Like we have a gym close to us who they're great and they're amazing at training competitive athletes. So if someone comes in and wants to be competitive, I just send them over there.
Yeah.
I think it's just the community that happen to pop up around us. Like my coaches are awesome and they're caring, and if they don't know, they're going to go figure it out. And everyone's treated the same, regardless if you have 10 muscle ups or 0 muscle ups.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I would put my coaching staff up against any other coaching staff in the country. And maybe not as far as like they know everything, but they care enough about everyone that they will figure it out.
Yeah. At the end of the day, that's the most important part. Right?
Yeah. You can't teach that.
Yeah.
So I think that was a big one. I think I just lucked out and got some really amazing coaches, and they have built this incredibly phenomenal community that truly cares about each other and is welcoming to everyone. That's the thing we hear most when people drop into our gyms. Like, I've never felt more at home than at this gym.
That's awesome.
I take a lot of pride in that.
And Megan is still there?
Yeah, Megan still runs the place.
Yeah, I remember because I used to train with her back in the day. She would come to Michigan every once in a while. Yeah. So that's awesome.
Yeah, Megan's still there. She is probably the main reason. That place would not be open without her. With all my traveling and I'm very, we'll call it sporadic minded.
Okay.
She does a lot of the work.
Things in line.
She keeps things in line. She does a lot of work to make up for my idiocy. So
that's awesome. I want to talk a little bit about just the adaptive community, because obviously you were welcomed with open arms. I think
Absolutely.
It has grown tremendously. And I think, even as far as now you're teaching seminars, you're teaching other trainers how to work with adaptive athletes. Who were some of the first people that you met, and then what has come out of those discussions and that community?
Yeah, I think the very first one I met was a guy named Chris Stoutenberg, and then Stephanie Hammerman. They reached out to me about the same time. And then 2 other guys, Gustavo Marquez and then Angel Gonzalez. Angel owns a gym down in Houston. Stouty is on staff with us now, and Steph just opened her own gym out in North Carolina.
Yes, I saw. I'm so excited for her.
Yeah, she's awesome. And so they opened up, and they messaged me or mailed. Steph actually sent me a letter, like an actual
in the mail.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, and I didn't think people still did that, but she's like, I figured everyone else was sending you like online messages.
I wanted to get your attention.
Yeah, it worked.
Yeah.
And so between those 4, they were kind of like, dude, you're gonna be okay. We get that this sucks, but let us know if you have any questions. And they really were people I leaned on for the first. I mean, I honestly, still to this day, I still lean on them for a lot of things that I don't know and they don't. Where I'd get a spasm in my foot or something like that, and I'd freak out, and I'd text Stouty and Angel, and they're like, dude, it's a spasm. Calm down. You're being a baby. Yeah. So they've been doing it for a couple of years, and they were the first to do it, and it was really cool to see what they had already figured out, and we just kind of ran with it from there. Pun intended.
running away. And what are you doing now with the adaptive seminar? What is the audience? What is the goal?
So we just transitioned into the Adaptive Training Academy.
Okay.
And so now we're putting same seminar we've been putting on through CrossFit. Now we're just a CrossFit preferred course. So literally same support from CrossFit and everything. The only thing that's really switched is that we're fully in control of our intellectual property, which is really nice.
That's awesome.
So we're going around the country, around the world, teaching adaptive fitness and the principles in which we do it. And right now it's a 1-day course. Hopefully by middle of next year we'll have a 2-day course, because right now we're only focused on like physical impairments or physiological impairments, paralysis, CP, MS, amputation, BPIs, stuff like that. But we're hoping to get a 2nd day for things like auditory, visual, and cognitive impairments.
Okay. And I know you also founded a nonprofit. Is it Reveille?
Reveille.
Reveille.
Yeah,
okay.
You're the first people to ever say it right.
Looking at the word, it's kind of hard to sound out. But actually, where did the name come from, just to start with?
So I'm sure most people have heard it because it's been on like cartoons and stuff like that. Have you ever heard like the wake up trumpet blast for the military?
Probably.
Like do.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It's called the Reveille.
Oh, okay.
And so, my buddy Ryan, my best friend, who was actually there when I got paralyzed, he was 10 feet away. He was in the Marines, served 2 tours overseas, got blown up both times.
Wow.
Came back with a lot of mood disorder, TBI, neck issues, and kind of first 2 years out of the Marines just really didn't do well. Came into the CrossFit gym I happened to be coaching at, and we just became really close friends. He would come to my classes all the time. We'd sit and chat for hours afterwards, get breakfast, stuff like that. And he completely flipped around, like really stopped drinking, stopped going out doing stupid stuff. Complete 180. And he came in one day and he's like, hey, I really want to help vets, man. I got this idea for a clothing line. And I was like, well, I got some contacts in certain places, so we'll go talk to him. And so we went to go talk to one of my buddies, and he's like, that's stupid, don't do that. He's like, whatever you guys did with Ryan, do that. And so that's where the idea came from. And so the Reveille projects we offer a 1-year scholarship for veterans who have mood disorders or physical disabilities.
Okay.
And we cover the cost of CrossFit gym membership, monthly nutritional counseling sessions. We pay for 4 physical therapy sessions within that year, and we also get them connected to companies like FaithRx so they can do like faith-based action projects. Because we truly believe that fitness, nutrition, community, and faith are the 4 pillars of a whole human.
I love that. Beautiful. How many people have you been able to sponsor so far?
Since 2015, we've put almost 50 vets through the program.
Wow, that's amazing. And I saw, I remember watching Tosh when he did his run, his locked and loaded 24-hour run. I think that was for
that was for us, yeah.
For the Reveille.
Yeah.
That was amazing. I mean, it's so cool to see the support around it.
Tosh has been a huge support to ours. Oddly enough, Ryan and Tosh serve with some of the same people.
Okay.
In fact, I believe, and they could correct me if I'm wrong on this one, but we do, generally when we open a new Reveille gym, so we contract out to gyms and stuff, we always do the workout Zembic, which is Ryan's commander, and that was one of Tosh's really good friends in the military who passed away.
Wow, that's really cool. That you do the workout.
Yeah.
And so if someone wanted to apply for one of these scholarships, how would they do that?
So we have a website, and you can apply for it, or you can refer someone that you think needs our help, and we will reach out to them. So it's thereveilleproject.org.
Okay.
And we will reach out to them, or they can reach out to us. And if we have a gym in their area, we'll start plugging them in with that immediately. Like help first, we'll figure it out later type of thing. If we don't have a gym in their area, that's one of the things. We have a booth downstairs here at the games, and one of the things we're trying to do is get more gyms interested so we can go nationwide and really make it so we don't have to turn down vets and say, hey, we can't help you because we don't have gyms in the area. So we're really trying to find more gyms outside of the state of Colorado to help us out and allow us to put vets into their gyms.
Awesome. And is there some training that the gym goes through just to kind of understand philosophy? Or
a little bit, not a ton. I don't think a lot of it's needed. A lot of these guys are pretty good fits for the communities. What we do is I actually go over the gym's programming, so I actually look at what they do and make sure I can see a thought process behind what they do.
Yeah.
And then the biggest part of it is we just go out there and experience them. Like we get gyms after we go out there and do some classes with them or hang out with them or try to feel out if we think the gym's going to be a good fit, and then we go into those gyms.
It's a good test. So you're getting someplace that's been tested and approved.
Yeah. I mean, generally we go out and do at least one workout, if not a couple. And afterwards, me and Ryan can always sit down. It's like, hey, how'd you feel about that? Like, did you like this? You like that? And most gyms are phenomenal. Some of them are pretty good, and some of them just don't have the military presence or that attitude that we're looking for. And it's not an insult to that gym. They're a phenomenal gym. It's just sometimes these vets need to be around other veterans.
Right. Just like you said, it's, I think, always easier if you're around people who've been through something similar. For sure. And then you said you're also still teaching level 1 seminars. So it sounds like you are traveling quite a lot. How many weekends are you actually home?
I think last year I ended up traveling like 45 or 46 weekends.
Oh my gosh.
This year has been a little less.
Okay.
I think I'll end up with like high 30s.
Yeah. So what are some of the unique, obviously at the adaptive seminars, you're teaching how to coach adaptive athletes, but at the level 1 seminars, what are some of the unique challenges for you in that setting?
Well, I'm definitely not demoing the squat.
That's fair to say.
Yeah. So I think for me...
Have you ever like gotten written in for the squat, or someone like overlooked it and was like, oh, Kevin's doing the squat today?
No. I have convinced Tosh and a few others to make the joke that called me up to demo the squat.
And just see what the participants do.
Yeah, it's a 50-50. Sometimes they don't like that joke, and sometimes they really do.
Yeah, you have to be careful.
Yeah. I remember Tosh did it one time, and the crowd did not enjoy it.
Not like that,
Yeah.
no.
It was fine. I thought it was hilarious. I think one of the biggest challenges for me with level ones is just making sure that I feel useful. Like, I'm not demoing. I can teach breakout groups. I can lecture.
Yeah.
I can help set up to a point. I'm not going to be as fast at it. And so, as you know, there's a lot that goes on with level one where it really just depends on counting on those around you to do what they're supposed to. So I think for me, just making sure that whatever I'm assigned and whatever I can do, I actually end up getting done.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Especially, I think, in those early days where basically all you can do is demo mainly and teach your groups. And so I think, or even like interning, at least sometimes they allow you to demo a little bit. And so it's always good to feel like you're able to contribute something. Yeah.
And that was, I actually think I even asked like David Nicole one time, like, are you guys sure you guys want me on staff? That's funny that you I would love it, and I want it, and so badly. But like, are you sure you haven't made a mistake here?
I'm sure everyone. I think I felt the exact same way. Like, it's just such a kind of prestigious job to have within the community, and so I think probably all of us are like, I don't know. Are you sure that this is?
Yeah, and for me, like having been around like the Cheries and Matt Chans and Eric O'Connors and all these guys, and like watching them teach, and like Chris Beeler watching them compete, and being around all of them, knowing like how good they were at what they did, and being like, all right, well, these guys are really good.
Right.
I'm okay.
Right.
Are you sure this is where I belong?
But it's amazing to learn from them.
I
love just to. I've learned so much just from listening to the way that people lecture, the way that they communicate, present information, and we hear that week after week. The participants are just wowed by the presentation. Yeah. Because it's unlike any other seminar, I think.
Agreed.
So, you talked a lot about how you have this sort of great sense of purpose now, and, some positives that have come from this experience, but I'm sure that it doesn't always feel like that every day in your day to day. And I'm sure that it evolves, year after year. But when you have some of those moments that are maybe not the best, or when you're not feeling a little bit down on yourself, how do you help to turn that around?
I think those days are natural and normal, and like even to this day I still have them. Like there's days I just don't want to do things, or I don't feel good, or like even getting up off a couch is just hard. I don't know. I feel like I honestly don't know where I would be without my family and my faith. I think those are two big things in my life that I really count on. And I think when I have those really bad days, I let myself have those bad days. But I also remind myself during those bad days that, like, I'm not living this life for me. I'm living this life for the God that put me here and the family that supports me. And I think keeping that in mind when I really feel like I don't want to do things has really spurred me, like the next day, okay, you had your bad day, but remember you're living for someone else. And I think that's really helped me a ton. Yeah.
So having some patience for yourself, letting yourself kind of go through those emotions naturally, but then stepping back and look at the bigger picture.
Yeah, patience for myself is hard. I'm not a very patient person with myself.
I remember you saying that a few minutes ago.
Yeah, not very patient with myself. Other people I like being patient with, but myself I don't have a lot of patience for.
Well, I bet you've gotten a lot better.
I've had to, yeah. You kind of have to at a certain point. It's one of those like laugh, cry, or scream type moments sometimes.
Yeah, you just have to kind of figure it out.
Sometimes all at once.
Yeah. So I'm sure you've had plenty of people coming up to you and telling you how maybe you've affected their lives or changed their lives in some way. What do you hope? You said, you mentioned now you have this platform, you have this ability to kind of like for God to act through you to impact other people. What are you hoping that message is, or in what way are you hoping to impact people who are watching?
I think we've seen, at least I've seen, and I would wager that the other guys on the adaptive staff will say the same thing. I think we've seen a lot of these to-be athletes, these persons with disabilities, be told no, or that they can't, and then they just give up or they stop, and they've never actually tried, and they're only told no because, of some statistic that says they're probably not going to. but they've never tried for themselves. And I've always thought that was kind of weird. And what we're finding is that when we get these people to try, those statistics are wrong, and that they're based off people who don't want to do any better. And so they have this whole vast life of functionality that they haven't even began to tap because someone somewhere along the road said, hey, don't do that. Or, hey, you can't do that. Or you should be careful because you're already broken. And I think my big goal is to allow them to understand that, like, yeah, you may have some broken parts and pieces, but it doesn't mean that you shouldn't try to better those things. You shouldn't try to and push the limits of your athleticism just because someone told you no. I mean, imagine an able-bodied person. Imagine the CrossFit Games if half of these athletes had been told no and they just stopped and hadn't pushed the limit.
We wouldn't be seeing what we're seeing this weekend.
No, it's insane what those guys can do. And I think it's insane what some of these adaptive athletes can do because they didn't stop when someone told them no. And I think we need more and more people out there reminding them that just because you were told no once doesn't mean you shouldn't try, and that you can do a lot more than you think.
Yeah. And what a great message for anyone, really. I mean, I think about like the type of patients that I'm working with now in primary care, and a lot of people with chronic disease, and a lot of those people, it looks like the environment that they've surrounded themselves where they think that they accept that this is what their fate is, where, well, everyone in my family gets diabetes when they're 50, or everyone is overweight, or this is just how life is. And if you can see those examples and they're tangible to you of people who are doing it differently and who are really trying to push the boundaries of what their body is capable of, it's amazing what can happen.
Yeah, I think that's across the board. I mean, I've had, as I'm sure most gym owners have had people come in and be like, yeah, I'm type 2 diabetic. My doctor says all I can do is take insulin. And it just hurts. It hurts inside here because someone told them that they had to stop being human. Yeah. So I think that's my biggest thing.
Yeah, it's amazing, like how powerful the mind is in a positive and a negative way. Like if you put limits on things, how that really does impact people's behavior versus if you open the realm of possibility, what people are capable of.
It's a behavioral psychology.
Yeah, there you go. It's all those classes coming in handy.
It came in handy. Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, I want to start wrapping up. There's 3 questions I ask everyone at the end of the podcast. The first one is, what are the 3 things that you do on a regular basis that have the biggest positive impact on your health?
Biggest 3? I would probably say, for me personally, showering, food prep, and working out.
That's good.
By far. Yeah.
3 good ones. What about one thing that you think would have a big impact on your health, but you have a hard time implementing it?
Squatting. For sure.
Okay, come on. You have to give me another one. That's not fair.
That I have problems implementing it. I think I could afford to do more gymnastic work or just more cardio, anything that's just, I do tend to bias towards stuff that is heavy. I like it. Yeah. Short sprint type stuff. I think I would really benefit from anything other than that.
But it's still amazing. I mean, the stuff that you guys do, like on the ropes, it's just crazy. It's so cool. Okay. Last question is, what does a healthy life look like to you?
A healthy life. I kind of feel like a healthy life is a giving life, in a short way of saying it. I think, don't get me wrong, I'm all for like self-care and taking care of yourself, but I think if you make yourself the center of anything, it turns out poorly for everyone. So for me personally, like putting God at the center and my family around that is a healthy life for me. But I think putting something other than yourself at the center of your life is what a healthy life is.
I love it. And, you do have to take care of yourself in order to give, but keeping that in mind, right? Like, why am I doing all of this stuff at the end of the day? Is it just so that I'm, if we're all sitting in this perfect box being these healthy people, but we're not actually influencing the world and interacting with the communities around us, then what's it really worth? Yeah.
I've always said, self-care is great and take care of yourself so you can take care of others. But if you start taking care of yourself because you think you're more important than others, that's where we have a problem.
I love that. That's a great quote.
Oh.
It's a perfect note to end on.
Thanks.
Did you come up with that yourself?
Sure.
Just now?
I guess, yeah.
I love it. Awesome. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yes, and wishing you all the best with the seminars, the gym, project. Hopefully people listening will check those out as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope so too.
Awesome. Thanks.
You.
Hi there. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode. Kevin is certainly a role model for so many of us, and I had tons of takeaways from this conversation. But as always, here are my top 3 takeaways. Number 1 is keep your circle close. It was very clear from this conversation and from my other interactions with Kevin that he has an incredibly close circle of friends and family that has played a key role in his recovery and his life. You never know when something unexpected might happen to you or someone in your own circle, but having those people you can count on no matter what and who have your very best interest at heart and will be there for you through thick and thin is invaluable. So just a reminder to take time to nurture those relationships and be there for your circle in big and small ways day to day, because this is incredibly important. Number 2 is always focus on getting better. So Kevin talks about some of his frustrations from other adaptive athletes being told that they can't do something. And I think this is something that we can all apply in our own lives. Yes, we will all come up against challenges, but a key difference between living a more fulfilled life and having a positive impact on the world around us is how much we can constantly strive to be a better version of ourselves instead of being complacent. And it's so important to think about how you can have that positive impact on those around you by lifting them up, believing in them, or giving them a little push when they need it, rather than limiting their own beliefs about themselves or their full potential. My third takeaway was that with challenge often comes opportunity. And I'm sure that for Kevin, in the moment, he would have imagined right after his injury the enormous impact that he would later have on thousands of people around the world like he does today. It's often really hard to see the silver lining in the moment when we're going through difficult times, but from this life-changing freak accident that Kevin had, he's been able to positively impact so many people that he may never even have come in contact with otherwise. So this is something important to keep in mind whenever we come up against challenges, big or small, in our own lives. Always take a step back and think about how that challenge might make you stronger or better able to positively impact the people and the world around you. To make sure you never miss an episode and to receive exclusive content from me, head to my website, juliefoucher.com, and subscribe to my email list. If you like what you heard, don't forget to subscribe and consider giving the podcast a 5-star rating on iTunes. Also, don't forget to share your stories. If you or someone you know has used lifestyle to overcome a serious health challenge, please send me an email at info@juliefoucher.com. I'll choose some of these inspiring stories to share here on future episodes. Don't forget you can train with me through Beyond the Whiteboard by visiting trainwithjuliefoucher.com. Thank you again so much for listening, and I'll catch you next time on Pursuing Health.